If you follow much of my content, you'll hear me speak a lot about there's purpose through facing weakness. There's even power through facing weakness. There's such potential that we uncover in our life when we face weakness. There's purpose, power, and potential when we face our weakness. But what happens if we just hide our weakness? I want to talk specifically about what happens in marriage when, especially early in marriage, maybe the first 5 years, some things happen and we're just like, well, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. We'll just have to just be okay with marriage being like this. Maybe there's lost intimacy. In maybe 5 years in, we're having kids and life is really fast and we're so focused on the raising of the kids and building of careers and whatnot that we'll just be okay that we have this thing over here. It'll just be okay. There is huge fallout that happens eventually. Let me explain what it looks like. One way is eventually the kids grow up and they grow up really fast. And then when they leave, that marriage, all of a sudden it's exposed just how distant it's become. And it's so distant at that point that it feels like there's nothing to even grab for. Like it just seems unreachable. It's just, in a second, the kids are out of the house. And immediately there's the desperation that these two humans feel that we have nothing. And you realize you haven't been anything together for a long time. And it feels like there's nothing to even grasp for. But here is a second type of thing that happens. Early in marriage, the first 5 years, if we kind of just like avoid problems and just like, well, this will just be the way it is. Let me tell you where it shows up. It shows up in our kids as they're growing up. I see this so consistently in families where I talk to a couple and they say, well, our kid is 15 and they're dealing with this kind of situation. They're dealing with this kind of mental problem. They're dealing with this kind of anxiety or depression and whatnot. And the reality is, when we as leaders and we as parents, we're leaders, when we don't face our own stuff, we don't even recognize how our own life is leading our kids down a path where they won't know how to face their stuff. We don't mean this at all. No parent would ever want their life to lead their child down a wrong path. But if I'm not facing my own weakness, I won't even recognize it in other people. I won't see when they're 11 and 12 the direction they're going in because I don't have clarity in my own life. I won't have clarity to help them with their life. This is just a reality that if we don't face stuff early in our marriage and just be honest about it, notice I didn't say fix it, just face it. The role of humans with weakness is just to face it boldly. Not fix it, just face it. In the facing of it, there's so much potential and power and purpose to be found. And the same goes with marriage. In the early years, every single marriage faces problems. And the options are, okay, let's just get out of this. Like, this is bad. Let's get out of this. What many people do is they just like, well, let's just compensate for this and just hope it'll turn out okay. And I told you the two main things that on down the road will not come out okay. One is that when the kids leave the house and you realize we haven't had anything together for a long time. And the second thing is when we don't face our own weakness personally and in our marriage, then our life unknowingly leads our kids in a direction where they have stuff that they don't know how to face. The good news is Wherever you sit today, there is such redemption for any human being that's willing to have the courage to simply face weakness, face problems. There's redemption. We don't have to live the rest of our life just like, well, all I can do is hide. All I can do is compensate. All I can do is cope. That's not all that the human has at their disposal. There is redemption. And this is the kind of work that we do with people. We help walk people down a road to redemption. Because it's possible for all of us. Our stories are all the same. We've all blown it. We've blown it in our relationships with each other. We've blown it in our marriages. We've blown it with our kids. We've all blown it in some way. But some people hide after they've blown it. Other people own up to it and face it boldly. In weakness, if we face it, there is so much potential and power and purpose. Face your weakness in your relationship.